So now on the show, I want to take a bit of a look at a comedy show that I went along to last night. Now, the show is called The People Have Lost It, and it's by a comedian called My Cousin Vlad. Now, I'll admit that I wasn't across My Cousin Vlad. Doing a little bit of research into him before the show, I found out that he is somewhat of an internet sensation. He has very, very big fan base, and last time he went around Australia, he sold out all of his shows. So I was kind of excited to go along and see him. I was unsure how I actually missed his stuff on the internet, because I watch a lot of comedy on the internet. I'm all over guys like Shami and people like that have comedy channels, but somehow I had not come across My Cousin Vlad. So last night I turned up at the Athenaeum Theatre and was amongst a sea of what are called Gladiators, his fans. Now, I am so glad that I went, because I absolutely love the show, and I'm going to be spending the next couple of days now going over My Cousin Vlad's internet stuff. His show last night was kind of what I would call old school comedy. Of course, I grew up in a time when people like Nick Giannopoulos, George Capranaris were doing what was called wog humour, and I'm not using that in a derogatory term. That is the actual term of what the humour is called. Their style of humour always resonated with me, because I grew up in Oakley with a lot of Greek and Italian friends. In fact, to the point where my wife points out to me today that I much rather eat Greek and Italian food than what I do most Australian food. If somebody says, "Oh, let's have a barbecue, I'm going to cook a steak," I'll be like, "Is it going to be marinated?" That's just the way I am, because that's the way I grew up. I grew up in a school where I think there was only 2 Aussie kids in a class of about 45 students. So that kind of humour has always resonated with me, because I understand what people like My Cousin Vlad are talking about when they talk about what it was like to have Greek, Italian, or Russian parents. And his style of comedy last night kind of matched that old school comedy that I grew up with, that I absolutely adore. There was lots of stories about the comparisons between his Australian friends when he was growing up and himself, how their parents spoke and things like that. And I found myself laughing out loud, because as soon as he started telling stories about what it was like with his dad and things like that, I started to think about what it was like with my family growing up around the Nikotakis, the Papadopouloses, and the Stamatakises. So it really, really resonated with me. I love his take on modern day life as well. He did something that not a lot of comedians do these days, where he would, for example, at one point he was talking about fashion and how crazy it's got. And he would actually bring pictures up on the screen behind him of the fashion that he was talking about at that time, which gives the audience a great reference point and really, really enhances the humour. I could imagine a lot of comedians would have tried to have done that and tried to describe what the celebrity was wearing at the time, and it would not have worked the same way as it did for Vlad last night. Yeah, I just loved the show. Like, that's all I can really say. It was just an old school comedy routine that worked remarkably well. He started the night off with an absolutely fantastic dig at the Sydney lifestyle. I won't ruin it too much, because for me that was one of the highlights of the show. I'd love to be able to sit here and tell you all about the parody song, but I don't want to ruin it for you, because I think that it was one of the best moments of the show. And I don't believe in giving away that kind of stuff and ruining it, because I want people to experience that magic that I felt when I first saw it on the screen. I was in stitches. I find quite often with a comedy gig that it takes me a while to warm up and start to laugh. But yeah, that parody song had me laughing so much. And again, it was old school kind of stuff. It was the kind of stuff that Santo Cialara was doing on the Late Show when I was growing up, that kind of parodying a modern day song and making it about the lifestyle that surrounds you, kind of thing. And it worked really, really well. I just absolutely loved last night. I cannot wait to be able to sit down and watch more of my cousin Vlad's stuff online, because his kind of comedy is what I look for in a comedy show. I'm going to give the show itself 3.5 out of 5. There was a couple of flat times, but for a majority of the time, you are going to be laughing out loud like so many people were last night at this amazing show. So make sure you find a way to be able to go and see My Cousin Vlad with his The People Have Lost It tour, because it's fantastic. If you're wondering where the name comes from, it's because of how he feels people have lost it during COVID. There's a few early on COVID jokes and political jokes about things that happened during COVID. It all works remarkably well. But if you like old school humor, the kind of things that that we've grown up with films like The Walkboy and things like that, you will absolutely love this. So go along and see it. 3.5 out of 5 from me.